Greetings! Welcome to At Home Crafts with the City of Tampa Visual Arts Department. I'm Trisha, and today we are making a coffee painting and watercolor book. Here we've got 2 tablespoons of coffee mixed in with 3 tablespoons of water. And then here we've got 1 tablespoon of coffee mixed in with the same amount of water. And then here we've got a half a tablespoon of coffee, and that's mixed in also with the same amount of water. So you've got light to dark. And then I've got some sponges, and these are just for texture. If you want some texture in your coffee painting, you do have to mix these up because the coffee settles. And so what I've done on the back here is I just kind of did a wash, and it's really light, so it's very hard to see, but that's just so that the paper isn't so plain when I start. For the dimensions of the book that we'll be making, the cover will be 7 inches wide by 8 inches high. So that's 7 inches wide by 8 inches high. And that will accommodate this piece of copy paper we have here, which is just a regular sheet of copy paper folded in half. So that will end up, for the interior of our book, 4.5 inches wide by 7.5 inches high. I have my flora and fauna drawn, and we'll give ourselves a little bit of texture in the background. Go back over an area and add in some more lights and darks where you want. Maybe we'll make this area up here kind of a little bit darker. In between your coats, you can get a hair dryer and dry it to make it a little faster, or you can let it air dry and come back to it. Okay, so now I'm gonna add in a little bit more to my painting. So let's start playing around with maybe some shade at the top. Oh, that's nice and dark. Yeah, like Bob Ross says, we're painting happy little mushrooms. Happy little trees. Get some of my lighter and blend. This would be a shadow under here. I'm just going to add a tiny bit of color to the sky just to give it a little something extra. So what I'm doing is I'm dipping my brush into the blue, and I'm kind of washing that down even more. I want it really subtle. So it's just going to be a really light hint of blue. And again, with watercolors, you can add more in some areas and less in others. So you can see that this side of my coffee painting is a little bit darker. So that means that your light source is coming from over here, my imaginary light source. And if you find that you've added too much color, you can take a little bit of paper towel or fabric material and just dab that away. Okay, so this has dried now, and I'm gonna come and add a little definition. And so I've got 2 different pens here that I'm playing around with today. So I'll just come in and start playing with where my initial tracing was. I will kind of let lines skip. Let the eye fill the information in naturally. Okay, we'll stop there. You get the idea. This is a coffee painting with some pen and ink and watercolor. first step in making a book is making what are called your signatures. We all know them as chapters in a book. I've taken and divided up 3 signatures. It's just 5 sheets of paper, and all I'm going to do here is fold that in half. So we're going to do that first. And then you take your bone folder and give it a nice crisp edge. Or if you have at home a knife, it does the same exact thing. Okay. So we have our chapters, our signatures, and we have our book. So I always start with my cover on this particular type of binding, which is just a real traditional 3-stitch stab binding. It's one of the simplest bindings you can do in bookmaking. You want to have your center hole for your cover at 4.5 inches in, and then the other 2 holes will be 1.5 inches in from either side. So this is a different measurement. Really easy way to find center on a piece of paper is take a scrap piece, fold that in half, and then if you fold this in half again, now you have the center of your paper. So here is your center mark that would fit into the center mark of your cover. So then I just take this scrap sheet of paper and I use it for where all the other holes are going to go. So that would be my 3 holes for sewing the book, right? So I'm going to make a hole here, here, and here. And I use the cardboard so that I'm not damaging my countertops. Okay, so now we have something that we can use to make holes in all our other pieces. So I'm going to open up to the center of my signature, and I'm going to put this right in the middle. And I always like to draw the holes first because sometimes this will shift on you and you can have your holes off place, which will cause you problems when you're trying to sew. This inside here and find the center, and so in the middle, that's where we start, and leave a tail on the inside. You're going to come up through the bottom to the inside, pull, and then back through the center and up through the top. Okay, then we're going to go through the center but to the inside in between your first signature and your cover. Make sure everything's pulled tight because it's hard to fix it later. Now we're going to sew the next one on. Come up through the center again, through the outside, up through the center. I'm actually going through all the way through the middle, but it's sometimes easier to do cover and the signature separate with that needle. And then through the top. So here I'm going to go through the center, stop on the inside. And that is so you can add your next one on, just like before. It takes a couple tries sometimes to get the sewing part down. That's okay. All right, so then you are just going to make sure everything's nice and tight. Not too tight or your book won't close. I just kind of feed it underneath there like that. And then you just make a loop underneath. And then you come through and you're going to make a knot. You're going to come back to the beginning and tie that off as well. And that's it for our book sewing, coffee painting journal.